My name's Tracy. I'm 19 years old. I'm from Hot Springs, Arkansas. As I grew up, as a young child, I was placed in foster care. Both my biological parents were in prison for the murder of my older brother. They were both looking at prison time. Like I said, I grew up in foster homes. I bounced around from home to home. I never really knew what love was. I knew my first name. I didn't know how old I was. I didn't know what love was. I didn't know what a family was. I was court ordered to go see my biological mother when she was in prison. And when she got out of prison, there was a lot of child abuse. There was a lot of physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse. There was times that she'd hold me down and inject stuff with her needles into me. There was a lot of times that I'd go to foster homes and child abuse would endure there. When I was 5 years old, God blessed me with a family. My mother and father today. My father's a Baptist preacher. He's 79, my mother's 78. And other than my salvation, I think that's the greatest thing that God has ever given me. They gave me a name, they told me how old I was, and they gave me all that, but I didn't trust them. I didn't trust myself. I hated myself. I thought it was my fault for all the abuse. I thought it was my fault for everything that I went through. So I was living with a bunch of hate in my heart, uncertainty and unlove. And I turned to drugs I was about 14, using drugs and alcohol. I was always depressed or sad. And when I started using the drugs, the depression just got worse. Satan had a good, strong hold on me. And up until, when I was adopted, I was in a strong Christian home. Every Sunday morning, every Sunday night, youth rallies on Monday night, Wednesday night services. So I knew who Jesus Christ was, but I wasn't following His will or His way. The depression got so bad, and I kept hearing the screams and the nightmares at night, just the flashbacks, my past, my mom, my biological mother, and all the things that she did. July the 31st of 2009, I figured that I was done. All the hate in my heart had built up, and I just told myself I was done. I didn't want to hurt no more. So I walked down to the barn, and I strung up a rope and hung myself, and my parents found me hanging in the barn. My mother cut me down. First responders and the sheriffs and the paramedics arrived on the scene. The only thing I remember is when I sat up after a shot of epinephrine and a defibrillator was the sheriff taking my mother's hand and say, "Your little boy's dead." And I think God brought me back at that moment to show me that I was being that selfish. Because I thought I was just hurting myself. And I watched my mom and my dad's heart break at that moment. And I didn't learn from that moment either. I hated myself even more after that and kept using drugs and alcohol. As I said, I'm 19. I went to my first rehab when I was 17 years old. And since then, I've been to 14 different rehabs, trying to get a hold of my life and my addiction. But since coming to Teen Challenge, it's the only one that's ever helped. And that's because they put Jesus Christ in our life. And I know that Jesus has a plan. As I said in Sunday school, that He does have a plan for my life. He has a plan for each and every one of these gentlemen standing behind me. He helped me forgive myself. He showed me how to love myself, which is something I never thought I'd be able to do. He showed me how to forgive my mother and everything that she put me through. And I pray to God that someday she'll open her eyes and soften our hearts to Him. In Psalms 41-3 says, "I waited patiently for the Lord, and He inclined unto me, and I heard His cry. He brought me up out of a horrible pit, out of the miry clay, and set my feet upon a rock, and established my goings. He hath put a new song in my mouth, even praise unto our God. Many shall see it and fear, and shall trust in the Lord." And since I've come to Teen Challenge, I know that God has placed me in a ministry. And I plan on joining the Air Force and being a chaplain, because there's so many men and women in our military today that don't know the salvation of our Lord Jesus Christ. And I think that's where my ministry is. I want to thank y'all for letting us know.